the North San Diego County Latino Book and Family Festival.
But what I gotta tell you, man, is being in Pachuco, doing the roles that I've been able to do has given me a sense of understanding of who I am, but it's giving you an understanding of who you are. And Selena did the same thing. Mi Familia did the same thing. And deliver brilliant.
Make this scene with all the ice out in the booth. At the gate outside, when they pull up, they get me loose. Yeah, jump out boys, that's like you boys up in that boost. If it way too big, when we pull up, get me the loot.
Porque puede suceder. Que me llegues a querer. Con tu mano sobre mi mano y a tu lado todo el mundo correré. Ven conmigo. Cierra los ojos y en silencio, sin palabras, yo mis cosas te diré. Acompáñame, que tu amor es mi canción.
Welcome everybody once again to this, the Latino Book and Family Festival. We are here today with some award-winning authors that they're gonna be talking about their experiences, sharing their story. You stay with us, and we're also gonna be inviting attendees to join in the session. So don't leave. Okay, let's get started. The three authors that we have today and one designer, they are Jaquelin Fematt Dutson. She is the author of Déjame que te cuente, co-author of Déjame que te cuente and Cruzando, that's a poetry. Alma Garcia, a award-winning author of Club Oasis, Childhood Memories, and Maricia Rodríguez. She's a book designer and works with the Alma Publications. Hey everyone. There you go. Oh, where's my video? There you go. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to this session. So as I mentioned, today, the authors that we have here and book designer, they are going to be sharing their experiences, their story, and a little bit about their books. What I'm going to do first is introduce every one of them. We're going to allow them to speak for around 5 minutes on their story, share a little bit about us, about you, and then we're going to have a discussion afterwards. All right? So I'm going to start with Jaquelin, and then we move on to the next person. Okay. There you go. So Jaquelin Fematt Dutson, she's originally from Durango, Mexico. Jaquelin did her undergraduate and graduate work at UC San Diego, where she's also served as the teaching faculty. She worked as a senior Spanish linguistic and editor for a software language company in Belgium. She teaches Spanish and literature at La Jolla Country Day School. She's one of the contributing authors of the award-winning book, Déjame, cuente. Jaquelin, would you like to take over and share a little bit about your story?
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be here today to share my story, and I feel truly privileged to have this space to do so. So thank you very much, Ana. Well, let's begin. I've always been fascinated by stories, perhaps because I had the great fortune, really, of growing up surrounded by amazing storytellers. My mother being one of them, who used to tell us, myself and my sisters, how our courageous and widowed great-grandmother survived the Mexican Revolution on her own, or how our great-grandfather came to the United States in search of a better life during the Bracero program. And later, I would find out that somehow these stories didn't make it into history books. Mm-hmm. And so I continued to listen and to learn from the storytellers in my life. And then when I was 6 years old, I read my first book, and I fell in love. I fell in love with reading. And the book was about a little boy who, while he slept at night, he wasn't having any dreams, wasn't dreaming. And this was a problem, a huge problem. So the family decided to take him to the town healer, Don Rufino, who recommended that the boy be read a bedtime story every night before going to sleep. And the family did, in fact, just that. And it worked. So by listening to the bedtime stories each evening, the boy was finally able to have dreams, to dream. And he was cured. And of course, this story just fascinated me from the very beginning. I'm a dreamer at heart. And I discovered that through this book and other stories that I would recreate later, that a little girl from Durango, Mexico, which is where I'm from, could dream too. And I continued to read and create my own stories, as I said. And through these stories, I was able to discover worlds beyond my wildest imagination, travel across time, all over the universe, identify perhaps with some of the characters, with their hopes and their dreams. It was truly magical, and I was hooked. In fact, I'm still hooked on books, and perhaps will always be. So to me, reading matters, books matter, literature matters as well. So I see that, especially now as an educator of world languages and literatures, I see how reading can impact an individual, how it can broaden an individual person's perspective about a community, its people, its rich cultural diversity, and its complexity. Literature can be a social force. Books have that power as well. they can create understanding and build communities and create agents of change. And that's one of the reasons why I write. Déjame que te cuente is, as Ana mentioned, is an anthology, which is written in Spanish. And there's also a bilingual version. And it was put together by the educator and author, Dr. Ana Maria Gonzalez, who invited me to be part of this project. And the book is, I quote, a collection of stories of immigrants in the United States who are originally from various Spanish-speaking countries and who are now all educators. And I'm one of the contributing authors. The anthology is a collection of our memories, our histories of struggle and perseverance. It's about the why and how we came to the United States. And through these stories, through these personal narratives, we hope that it will inspire readers and allow for reflection and understanding of our own personal journeys. Cruzando is my recent publication, and it's a collection of poems written in Spanish. And it's really a continuation of the narratives that I shared in the anthology, in Déjame que te cuente. Cruzando is about my journey and the courage to find my own voice and to share my story. And the book is about really the path that led me here to where I am today, where I reside, which is San Diego, in this vibrant and fascinating Cali Baja region. So you see, now that I have the opportunity to share my story and my books with you, I can't help but to look back and think about that 6-year-old little girl reading her first book about dreams. And I think that just being here today is a beautiful example that dreams do come true. So I encourage everyone to please keep reading and keep dreaming too.
Thank you, Jaquelin, for sharing a little bit about your story, some about your books, and we're very happy to have you here. We're gonna go into a discussion where all of us can help us moderate the session, but Jaquelin, if you can help me out in moderating the session as we go into the conversation. I'm gonna go ahead and move on with Alma Garcia, and then we go with Maricia, so that everybody gets an opportunity to share their story at the beginning. Okay, there we go, thank you. So Alma Garcia, she's an award-winning author of the book Club Oasis, Childhood Memories. So she was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. Alma has been a professor of sociology at Santa Clara University, and her autobiography, Club Oasis, Childhood Memories, is a collection of coming-of-age stories told from the perspective of Pinky Garcia, the author's younger self. She creates her Club Oasis as a space where her imagination soars, that includes Mexican heritage themes, love, respect for the family, a love for education, and the importance of bilingualism. Alma, can you tell us a little bit about your story and your book?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ana, and everyone else who helped organize not just this event, but all the other events that will be going on. And it's my honor to be one of the recipients in the category of young adult nonfiction books for my Club Oasis Childhood Memories. I grew up in El Paso, Texas. My grandmother was, as pointed out by others, an immigrant with her family, and her story was a story of thousands of Mexican families who fled the Mexican Revolution of 1910. And my mother was born in the United States of Mexican heritage, my grandmother, and my father was from Durango, Mexico, and he came to the United States in the 1940s. And as it happens, he met my mother, and here I am. So I grew up in El Paso with 4 older brothers, and it was a place where, as you say, I created an imaginary world, partly because I was the youngest, no one to play with in my home. And so as I did, I let my imagination just soar in my Club Oasis, which was an actual place in my family's upstairs porch. And every afternoon in the summer, nobody was up there. My brothers were off playing sports. My grandmother and my great aunt were sleeping after they cooked and cleaned. And so it was my world. And there I was able to make believe and take on all kinds of things that I didn't think it was impossible, but they were occupations that I strived to be. And my Club Oasis was supported with love and encouragement by my mother, my father, especially my father, and my grandmother. And it came about that I wrote this memoir because, as I was saying to you before we began the session, being an educator and being trained in the 1970s, we were taught you never use the I in anything you write. So there's strict academic books. I had an anthology of the early writings among Chicana feminists. I did a study of Mexican-American women, Mexicanas, who were in college. And I told their stories, but academically with their quotes. And so someone once told me, a student, when I was teaching 1 year at Berkeley, I used my article on Chicana feminisms, and she raised her hand and said, well, where are you in this article? It's about the 60s and the 70s, and you told us that's when you were growing up. And I said, yeah, that's right. I never used the word I, and I never forgot that. So about the second decade that I was teaching, I began to use literature in my very dry upper division sociology classes on theory, on all kinds of things. I used novels, I used biographies, I used memoirs, I used prose, I used poetry. And inevitably, a former student will come up to me and say, I don't remember the demography, the statistics, but I remember the stories we read. And they say we read the stories, but we're also able to analyze them as a social scientist. So I thought, okay, my job is done. I told my colleagues, I told friends, all these stories. I inherited from my father the art of storytelling. His stories weren't always true, but they were stories. And so I was encouraged to write them, but I was very hesitant because I had only written academic work and I had used creative writing, but I didn't think it was possible. So then 2 years ago, I was beginning my retirement and I said, all right, I'm going to do this. And the stories just started flowing. And for those in the audience who want to be writers and those present, I didn't realize how painful it would be to go back to being a child. And I wrote Club Oasis from the perspective of a young child. But as an adult, I thought, oh, okay, this episode is going to hurt her later in life. When someone said, she's so well-dressed and clean, but she's Mexican. So I had, the impression I had this, but I thought I'd write the stories to inspire people to dream, to make sure that they never lost that dreaming. So my Club Oasis is a series of coming of age stories of a young girl, as Ana pointed out, Pinky Garcia. And by the way, I was called Pinky because my 4 older brothers went to the hospital and they said, she's so pink. So be careful what you say when you visit someone in a hospital, because for me, that name has stayed for 69 years. Anyway, so what I did was take all the stories that I remembered and put them down chronologically, always from the perspective of a child, and was very difficult to keep that voice throughout the stories. Some friends of mine read the stories and they said, this isn't a young kid, this is a sociologist. So I had to go back and it was painful. I cried and I laughed. I thought, gee, that happened to me. So what I wanted to do was to share with others, particularly students of color, young people, and particularly Latinas, whose lives aren't always represented in the literature that we have or in the news that we have. And I wanted to represent them in a vibrant way, in a way that said, here I am, and I've had a difficult life, but I was able to capture that innocence of youth that often is not looked at. Only the bad parts of our culture are looked at. And so that's one of the reasons why I write. I inherited the love of reading from my mother. We came from a modest middle-class background, and she always took me to the public library, no matter how tired she was from working. The only requirement was I could only check out 10 books and not read any of them on the way home. So I would do that. And I'll tell you, I joined this library club from the El Paso Public Library, and I sometimes don't read directions, but I thought it said read 10 books a week for the summer. It was actually 10 books for the entire summer, but I read 10 books every week and wrote book reports. So my love of reading is the legacy that I give to young people, that no matter what your circumstances are, there's usually a public library or borrow a book, and be able, my advice to young students and to parents is to create a club oasis for them, however it happens to be, and to nurture their imagination. But keeping in mind, there are obstacles to doing that. I was fortunate to go to Catholic schools, and that was inculcated in me. But I know it wasn't true for many of my friends who didn't go to Catholic schools. But my mother tells a story that, because I thought, how did she pay tuition? She told me the story when, she was now in her 60s back then. She said she went to the principal and said, okay, I don't have money to pay, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to teach my kids, and they're good material. So you should be honored that I'm bringing my children to you and that God is through not paying. So my lasting words are, I address them to young adults of all backgrounds, but particularly to Latinas, women, who have many, many obstacles, but many of us now are able to surpass them, but always with the help of those women who came before us, whether they were writers or academics or our mothers and grandmothers, to always believe in themselves, for the women to be fiercely independent, to always respect their family. And my mother's advice, always, till the day she passed, was always reach for the stars, even though some people will say it's impossible. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Oh, wonderful, Alma. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I would imagine that it's really hard for somebody to go back to their childhood and start there once again, because we're living now here, but we don't usually go back to our lives when we were a child until we start thinking about it, or until a project like yours comes around.
Well, I now have the creative urge, and I'm working on a sequel to this memoir, but it's from the perspective of an adult, and it's tentatively titled Passages to Harvard, a Memoir. So I'm not leaving creative writing.
All right, that's great. Okay, we're gonna go into Maricia Rodríguez, and then we hear her story, and then we're gonna open it up for a conversation and discussion here. All right, let me go ahead. So Maricia Rodríguez is a book designer, award-winning author with some of these books that participated from the Alma Publications. She is the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at the Alma Publications. She received her MBA in Finance from the University of Houston, Victoria, and Bachelor's of Bioenvironmental Science from Texas A&M University. Maricia is also a book designer in various book projects with the Alma Publications. Maricia, can you tell us a little bit about what are those books and what is your story?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to be short because I have a tendency to speak too long. We started the Alma Publications almost 10 years ago to fill a need in the market for more bilingual books for children in order to improve the biliteracy rates in the country. This company we started, we're a family business, so it was started by my mother and my sisters and I. And At the time, I was getting my MBA, and we did a feasibility study, and it showed it was a good idea. Obviously, we all know the need for more diverse books in the market and so forth. I've always had a love of art. I've always, as you can see, my background is in science. I was an environmental scientist, but I've always been very strong in the arts. And we started with our first book was a poetry book, and it was for middle school age children. And I was tasked to do the photography for that book. And, you know, at the time it was just a hobby for me, but I just started developing my skills in photography, and it went from there. Then we produced a bilingual alphabet book. The very first one was called Todos a Comer, came out in 2017, and that was a very successful book. I did the photography for that book. And we decided to make the bilingual alphabet book idea as a series. So Todos al Rodeo is our third book of nonfiction bilingual alphabet books. And I also did most of the photography for this book, but not all of it. The book is nominated for in the design category for best use of photos inside the book. So I wanted to share my screen so I can show everyone some of the photos that we did for this book, and talk a little bit about the design aspects of the book. So let me just share my screen really quickly. Anna, please tell me if you can see this.
Yes.
Great. So as you know, the book is Todos al Rodeo. It's a Vaquero alphabet book. We decided to write this story. We're from South Texas, from the border, the South Texas border, in a little town called Zapata, Texas. And it's a very small ranching community, but it was part of the José de Escandón Villas del Norte settlement from, you know, back in the 1700s. And there's many families today that trace their heritage to these early Spanish settlers. And one of the points of the book is we talk about the influence that, well, the Spanish were the ones who brought the horse and the cattle to, you know, to this country, and the vaqueros, you know, the Spanish brought all of the technology and the know-how of handling these animals, and they basically introduced this to this new world. And we talk about the linguistic borrowing that happens, you know, when there's many words within this industry that were adopted and adapted into English. So some of these words are the ones that we use for the alphabet, because they are, you know, they've been adopted into English. The purpose of the book is to highlight the life and the history of the vaqueros in this country. And we try to use children in most of the photos. Obviously, some things are a little dangerous, so not. But this is A for arena, arena. This is in Zapata. This is a rodeo arena. And the little girl to the right was our model. And she actually loves horses and was so excited to participate. She's actually taking riding lessons and loves the rodeo and horses.
Sorry to interrupt. We only see like partially the photo and arena side. I'm not sure if your screen is zoomed or something.
Actually, I have it full. I have it in the full. Let me see. Oh, I see. There's a little line. I see there's a line. How about now?
Okay, perfect.
Okay, the next one is F for familia. And I just wanted to highlight this familia. This is the Garcia familia from Zapata, Texas. And it's, we're depicting that this is a tradition that is passed down, you know, by, you know, in all the generations. And you can see the older gentleman in the middle. He's their rock, you know, Mr. Garcia. He allowed us to go and shoot photos at his ranch. at the lower left side is one of his grandsons, and he's practicing his roping. He's also, participating in the rodeo. And on the right side, they actually breed horses. So we also took a picture for Mustangs, and we took a picture for their herd of horses, and you can see them kind of in the background. These are not photos that made the book, but I wanted to show them anyways. But we're very grateful to them for allowing us to cooperate with us in this project. This is a brother and sister. We had N for Nopal, and we went all over their grandfather's ranch to find the perfect nopal for the photo. And of course, we told them to be careful, and they did, take photos, and we do say that in the book, be careful. And somehow I think we did have a little mishap, but it was so much fun, and they were so they were great participants. Another set of brother and sister, O is for like to stop the horse. And these children take riding lessons in Laredo, Texas. There's this arena. It's the Lienzo Mayoral. It's a charro school, and they are take riding lessons. And the little girl, she's actually training to become an escaramuza, and you can kind of see her kind of in action there. And so again, very, very grateful that they were helped us, allowed us to take pictures there. And here's another family. The gentleman in the middle is Mr. Javier Zapata. He's actually related to the Garcias. They have a very beautiful horse, and we said P is for Pinto, and this beautiful horse was used in the book, and those are his grandkids, and we took a whole bunch of photos there. We also used it for a Z for the zillions of cattle brands. The brand is shown because it's a Z for Zapata there. And then S for Sombrero, another brother, sister. These children also very comfortable with animals. That's their pony. And now they are also participating. They're in the junior rodeo competitions now. So they're in, also. And then this is for Yuka. Y is for Yuka. And this little girl, her family has a cattle ranch, and we went all over her ranch trying to find the best flower for the yucca plant. And she was surprised. She didn't know that the cattle actually ate it. That's like a delicacy for them. And so, we fed it to the cattle, and it was like she was having so much fun, and it was a great day. This shows, of course, the layout of the book. R is for rodeo, of course, and we have it in parallel text, English and Spanish, Spanish first, and then English at the bottom. And then at the end, we also have a picture glossary. It shows some of the tools that, cowboys, vaqueros use, and so forth, just to reinforce some language to the children. What I wanted to say about this design, obviously this was the third in the series, so it followed the same design as the other two, which I have back there, which is again the parallel text and the glossary in the back. And then we've got additional teaching resources for teachers to use in the classroom as well. In terms of design for the book, it went through various iterations, as you know. I'm in charge of marketing, but of course design comes into play with it so much. The cover of the book is so important. This was one of our first versions of the cover, and then this was the, ultimately made it. We tried so many different shades and variations for the cover. We tested it, we field tested it always with children and with adults, but it was a very fun project. I do also want to just acknowledge for some of the photos. Our cover photo was taken by a professional photographer. His name is Ali Mas of Ali's Images. And there's Beatriz Briones is also another commercial photographer. and she did the picture for the escaramuzas. And these two photographers specialize in rodeo photography. So we, of course, had them help us with some of the photos as well. But, we're very happy with the way it came out. We wanted to use real life, as many children as we could, because this is a children's book and we wanted them to see, there may be kids, that don't have horses or have not, have never been to a ranch and they don't know. So we wanted to show them a little peek inside that type of life. Because again, this is our heritage. This is, I'm originally, again, from Zapata, Texas, and this is kind of our, what we grew up with, and we wanted to, share it with the rest of the world. So just very happy to Anna and Kirk and whomever who invited us, because we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, Maricia, I see how using this kind of system would help people learn what the vaquero experience is. What is the vaquero in the first place? Because we hear the word, but we don't really know what they do exactly, because we're not vaqueros.
Yeah, we also for the word for the V, we use V for vaquero, of course. And with our research into the book, we found out that buckaroo was the Anglicization of vaquero. So I don't know, like it's funny, but I guess, the pronunciation where they were having difficulty pronunciating vaquero, so it turned into buckaroo. So you may have heard buckaroo, and it's actually, it derives from vaquero.
Nice.
So we do point that out in the book.
Okay, I want to share some of the comments that some of our attendees have said. So first of all, for Jaquelin, Edward mentioned that your story was beautiful about reading and dreams. Reading, as you said, it's very important to young children, and it needs to be emphasized over and over again by parents. For Alma, Edward also thanks you for encouraging reading and the wonderful world of storytelling. Storytelling, whether it's true or not, it encourages our children to dream and succeed. And one more comment for Maricia. So Maricia, he's also thanking you for encouraging bilingualism in books, especially. And then the benefit of bilingualism is just, the benefits are numerous, from being from the intelligence perspective to a financial standpoint. So thank you, Edward, for your comments, for the authors that are here with us. Okay, so Jaquelin, help me out moderating this session. And if anybody has any questions, do you want to add something to the conversation?
Well, absolutely. Well, let's begin with Maricia. I was captivated by those photos. To me, those are visual narratives in essence, right? And you mentioned a little bit about the field testing. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Because I'm sure you put in a lot of time and effort. So from someone who is not involved in that realm, in that area, I'm really interested.
Well, obviously we want to put out the best product we can. So we have beta readers, I guess you could say. You could call them that. Obviously, for the rodeo book, especially, we called upon professionals in the industry to review it for us. People who are familiar with horses and cattle. We had a extension agent from Texas A&M review it, and then of course we had a professional cowboy review it, and then of course a university professor who's also Dr. Jerry Thompson from TAMU, Texas A&M International, who's a renowned author himself, to review the book. And then of course we always tested on children, since these are children's books, we want them, we're like, hey, what do you think about this? You know, so we ask them, and we have them read parts of it, and you'll be surprised, especially on children's books. You know, it may pass, like, you know, an adult may not catch something, but children always catch little things here and there. They're like, oh, and especially the photos or the illustrations in an illustrated book. They're like, this looks kind of funny over here. And you know how kids are just going to find something and then they're going to laugh and they're going to think something's goofy and, you know, it doesn't make sense, or there's a gap in the, you know, interpretation of it. So all of those things really, really help, you know, tighten up the story, tighten up the production of the book. So it's very important. And we do that for all of our books before they go out. So I encourage that, of course, everyone to do that multiple times.
Thank you. Alma, can you share a little bit about your process of writing? You just wake up, you have a routine of writing, you wake up every day at a certain hour and you just, okay, today I'm going to write X number of pages. How does that work for you?
Well, since I didn't have any experience with creative writing, I would tell the stories to myself, looking in the mirror, and just pretend that I was a young girl speaking to my mother or to my father. And I didn't have a routine because I was also teaching at the time. But I would, on downtime where I would usually paint or play my piano, I would then write, but I would not force it. And interestingly, when I would write, they're small vignettes, maybe 5 or 6 pages. When I would start a vignette, I would just write nonstop for several hours. Sometimes the stories came very quickly because I had heard them so many times. One that comes to mind is El Gato Bilingüe, the bilingual cat, that I think my father told us all that about 100 times. And so it's about a cat who lives in a village and everyone is amazed that he can speak 2 languages, and he speaks Spanish and gato because he wants to be able to talk to this little mouse, and he thinks the mouse speaks only Spanish. And so one thing that was funny, and I included it so I wouldn't just be creating the story from an adult. My father would always tell a story, and the cat's name was Luna or Bonita. And then the young girl in the story says, I thought the cat's name was Luna. And then my dad said, oh, sometimes they called her that. So I tried to capture my mother and father's way of being. My mother was very strong, sometimes too reserved. And my father, since I'm the only girl, he just went on all my adventures, created some. So to go back to your question, I didn't have a method. I merely told a story. I didn't use a tape recorder. I just wrote, and I had numerous drafts. I didn't use dialogue because I wanted to be the young child as a storyteller. So that's what helped me. I didn't have to worry about dialogue. I think now that I'm writing another book, since I'm writing as an adult in my 30s, I'm being a little more methodical in terms of, okay, I'm going to write today for 2 hours. But if I don't write, that's okay. But I don't know. I've talked to other writers and they say, yeah, sometimes we do that. Since I'm not working with deadlines right now, I take advantage of the time I have now that I'm retired to do so. And it's actually, I see writing as play. It's like I'm in a play now, but it's actually writing. I never understood that until I started doing creative work.
Thank you. Do any of the audience members have any questions? Alma, you also mentioned the important role that some individuals have, especially women have in your life or have had in your life. Your mother being one of them. I can definitely relate to that. I also have a mother who taught me how to read. So I read my first book with her help, and who would also take me to the library and encourage me to read. Can you elaborate a little bit more on those role models that you had that inspired you?
Yes, my mother inspired me as a woman who, because of various problems, had to work a lot. And so the time that I spent with her was very special, but oftentimes it was painful because she would confide in me what she was doing. And one story that she told again over and over again, and I included as one of the first ones, it's situated in a vignette where I create my own newspaper. And I'm telling her about it, and I show her my little club Oasis, and suddenly the story changes. And I remember as a young child that I'm not sure what's going on. Of course, later I did, so I include that. But she said, I also had a little space in a closet, and I dreamt of having a big department store. And she dreamt about being an interior designer because she studied that in El Paso High School. And they offered her a scholarship to go to Denton College, Denton, Texas. And her mother said, absolutely not. Mexican women only leave their house to go to the convent or to get married. And she said to me, my life ended at that time. And I thought, well, what about me? And she would always say, it went a different way. So in the book, in the story, I tell her, I ask her, will you work in my newspaper and write a column on interior decorating? So she was a very strong woman, fiercely independent. Ultimately, her marriage didn't work out, but she raised all of us. She was a woman who didn't take anything in terms of stereotypes or people telling her as an adult what to do, because she remembered what her traditional grandmother told her. And so that was a very strong influence. My father gave me the joy of living. And in the beginning of the book, I include my mother's story about the stars, but my father's advice that encapsulates, it captures his spirit in Spanish, because he only spoke English to me, but sometimes he slipped into Spanish. He said, hay que exprimir la vida cada minuto. You got to squeeze every minute in your life. And he was very cantinflesque. He would play with words and he would tell jokes over and over again. And he had a way with language. My mother was more serious. And so I guess I'm a combination of the two, very strong work ethic, but always with a playfulness. And that's what I tried to capture in the book, the playfulness, the innocence of youth. Now in my next book, I'm going to talk about difficulties going away to school. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. I believe Alma Lasad has a question.
Yes. Alma,
Yes.
you can unmute yourself and ask. Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. It's not a question. I just wanted to say how fascinating it is to listen to the three of you, your perspective and your way to teach our children. I'm really convinced, like Whitney Houston used to say, that our children are our future. And what a beautiful way to encourage them to learn, to read, and to learn about our culture. And one quick thing, Jaquelin, maybe you don't remember me, but we used to be neighbors. You're the Jaquelin that used to live in UTC, right?
What a small world and what a beautiful surprise.
I'm so happy to see you again after so many years.
Oh my goodness.
Congratulations.
In such a serendipitous way. So we meet again. Thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. And thank you for everything. I mean, I know you're a great supporter and an incredible reader, and you are also very inspirational. So I'm very fortunate to have crossed paths with you as well. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And also in the chat, Edward says to Alma that what a beautiful way to encourage our young listeners to become writers. Treat it as a play scenario.
Yes.
All right. So, you know, today we have two authors and a designer, but how is the process when you are planning to design your cover? Because as you're doing all of the, you have to get to a point where you get to finish your book, but is your cover ready? Well, that's where there's the final, it's the final piece. Well, that's what I think. Is that true? How, for each of you, how was the process to decide on the cover of your books?
When I first started writing, I was looking for pictures to include a picture for the cover. I didn't realize it would be, but if you see it, I was 9 years old in grade school, about 4th grade. And I thought that's what I want, because it's about my younger self, Pinky. And my mother had saved this picture. I didn't remember it, but I had been going through things ever since she passed away about 10 years ago. And I found it. So through all her travels, through all her life, she kept this picture. And then there are 2 pictures that I used, and they tell a story, but I didn't really notice it until someone told me. It's a picture of me and my grandmother in front of our house on Easter, and I'm very stiff right next to her. Then the exact same pose, it's my mother and I'm just relaxed. My mother has her arm around me, and that encapsulates the strong traditional role that my grandmother played. And my mother's more, I guess, because I was the only daughter, protective, nurturing self. And I put both the publisher put both pictures together. And so it was quite revealing that that's how I had written about them. So I'm really happy. And for the book that I'm writing now, also my mother saved these pictures. It's a picture of my mother, my father, and I when I graduated from the University of Texas at El Paso. And then I found a picture of my mother and I, because my father was not there, right after I received my PhD from Harvard. And I want to put both of them somehow together in the cover or somewhere inside, because the book will go from my graduation from college all the way to Harvard with a lot of flashbacks. So I thought those juxtaposed, it's amazing how they look the same, except of course we're changed, but it's the same event. So that's how I pick. I go back to family pictures, like all of you mentioned, because they tell the story.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, for us, this book is a 3rd in the series, so we continued with the same style. The first one was the foods book, which is this one, and also won the Latino Book Award. When we first decided to start this series, the author, she's like, I want papel picado. So I was like, somehow you have to put papel picado in there, because it's, like a party celebration. We wanted to evoke this feeling of happiness. And so, you always put up papel picado when there's a party. So that was the start of that design. When we were, okay, so I knew that. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll just find something online, and I can, put it together. Nothing. There was nothing that I liked. So we had to create it from scratch. And actually, I think that was the best thing for us, because we've always tried to be as unique as possible. And also, you don't want to infringe on anybody else's copyright. Sometimes you don't have permission. So you always have to be very careful. Even fonts, you have to make sure that they can be used for commercial purposes. If not, you have to purchase the rights and so forth. So you have to be very careful. So we created our own schematic of the papel picado, and then we knew we wanted to put a photo also in the cover, since these are nonfiction using real life photos. That's what we wanted to use, was a photo from the book. And so obviously for the rodeo, we picked the rodeo. And this picture right here is a great picture. This is team roping in San Antonio, Texas, at the George Strait Arena. And this young gentleman, of course, we know him personally. He's from Zapata, Texas. He got a scholarship to do rodeo in, I think it's Texas State University. So now he has a professional scholarship for rodeo, not professional, but he's just a very, very talented young man who is, participating in the rodeo. So for that book, of course, we had to use a rodeo picture. But the background, like I said, we went through so many iterations. We have a design in the back of the letters, and that's, if you look closely, it's got the, you know, like in the Mexican style belts and buckles that have that, you know, that leather that is hammered design. Beautiful, beautiful design. So we took some fabric and, you know, some leather fabric with that design and photographed it in that and used it for this particular. We, again, couldn't find anything online. We tried so many different backgrounds. We tried blue jean. We tried, you know, so many versions. But the best thing was to just create our own. And also for the inside of the photos, again, a lot of the photos we took them ourselves because, again, we just couldn't find something that, you know, that somebody else had done that was exactly what we wanted. So it was just best to just put it all together ourselves, and it just came out more beautiful that way. But there's so many considerations because, you know, colors, they evoke so many feelings, and I could go on, but it's you just have to be very careful and test it, field test it, of course.
For me, it was also a very lengthy process and very similar. I was very, very careful not to infringe on any copyrights. So what I did is I also went through family photos, and I picked a family photo and worked with that. And I picked a photo that I and the publisher thought that really captured the whole concept of the book. The book is titled Cruzando, which means crossing. So it's really an analogy of the path that you make in your life. And so that's how it.
Wow. I just think it's very interesting the way after you publish a book, you have to, I mean, after you finish writing your book, you have to visualize the front side of it. And then it's for everybody, it's a unique process. And producing that unique design is just a lot of work. So let me see, and we're getting close to the end. I just want to say that if there's any questions from our audience, you are still welcome to continue asking questions. The information for each one of the authors here present is going to be on the website, lbff.us. And if you have questions to them, you can always, send us an email and asking for maybe the contact information of any of them, if they are willing to provide it. Now, any final comments from anybody, I would say?
I believe Alma and Hector have their hands raised.
Oh, let me see. Oh, that's right. Good. Good notice. Okay. Alma or Hector, do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I have can you hear me well?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Hey, listen, I want to congratulate you ladies. This is an awesome thing, power to the Latinas and join as a panelist. Okay, stay as a attorney. And, it's such a powerful voice just to have more women in the business. I too am in a.
Okay, he's going to be joining as a panelist. So there's going to be like a few second gap.
Yeah, you got me?
There we go. Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you heard what I said. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I just wanted to congratulate the ladies. And I was saying that I just became a #1 best-selling author. I too am an award-winning author. So I know the process. I understand the process so well, but that was the easy part, right? Producing and getting the book published. That was pretty much the easy part. Although for me, it was difficult because, my story, my story is a true story. It's a memoir. So it was difficult to expose myself and the secrets because I speak about, the secrets that imprisoned me all my life until I released them 45 years later to free myself. But I talked about the mask that I wore all this time. And so that was so difficult to discuss. But you know what? It was, and it took me about 3 years to actually write that book. Nonstop. I'm talking about nonstop. But that was, a lot of anger, a lot of interruptions with the emotions. I kept ripping up the manuscripts and and starting all over again. But it was probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done because I got to free my spirit. So after that, it was just like, okay, do I publish this book and move forward and tell the world and share my secrets with the world? It was just a big step for me. And I done so. But the hardest part of all of this is promoting the book has been so difficult. I mean, you just keep going and going and going and going and going. And that is a never-ending process. But if you don't speak about your book everywhere you go, it's just useless. No one's gonna know. So, you know, after you sell books to your friends, and by the way, I'm sorry that I came in late. I was trying to log on and I couldn't log on. I'm in Florida, so the time is a little different. And when I was trying to log on, it tells me that it hasn't begun yet. So I was intermittently just trying to log on, and I happened to log on. So I actually missed most of this, and I want to apologize for that. But nevertheless, I just want to congratulate you ladies. It's an inspiration and definitely a motivator for other women that are looking to venture out in this market. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. And I hope that I can hear from you again sometime down the line. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Hector. What time is it over where you are?
It's actually 3 o'clock, 3:03 right now.
Because
So
we still have more sessions. And so I wanted to ask if in 2 hours you would like to join again and be a presenter to talk about your book.
Oh, absolutely.
Hector, can you share the title of your book?
It's titled No Regrets, The Journey. No Regrets, The Journey. So it's a title and subtitle. No Regrets, The Journey by Hector Lafasi.
All right. And I will have the information for Hector on our website as well. And we'll have an hour gap from, and our next session is going to be at 1, and then the next session is going to be at 2. So everything is going to be on the website as well. Hector, I will be contacting you here shortly after this session for that.
Okay, so that would mean that if it's 3 here, the next session is going to be at 4 o'clock in 1 hour. No?
The next session, your session is going to be in 2 hours.
In 2 hours. Okay, so I'm looking at 5 o'clock. Okay.
Exactly.
Yes, I would love it. Thank you.
All right, thanks for being here. Since we are pretty much out of time for this session, unless anybody else has any other questions, I will go ahead and
I believe Alma has a question.
No, it was what's the name of his book, but he had I got the answer. Thank you, Jackie.
Well, I just want to say thank you again. It was my pleasure to share with everyone a little bit about the process for creating our bilingual book, and you know, I hope to enjoy watching all the rest of the sessions and throughout the rest of this month. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, guys.
Yes.
Same to you.
I just want to say thank you again, and I look forward to reading your publications. You inspire me, and everyone who is going to be in all these sessions will be an inspiration to me, of course, to your readers. So again, I look forward to reading your books.
And also thank you very much, everybody, for being here, and for, you know, fellow authors for sharing their beautiful work. And you definitely inspired me as well.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm very happy to have you all here. And this type of sessions, previously, we never even considered them until the pandemic hit. And so I see that this provides a bigger opportunity for everybody, because now everybody, no matter where you are, you can join these sessions and be part of this. So I welcome everybody to stay or to come back actually for our upcoming sessions with more authors. Now, let me just going to some final upcoming events. But thank you everybody for being here. Thank you. And if you want to stay around, you're welcome to. I'm just gonna go ahead and conclude by sharing upcoming presentations. All right. Bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, so today at 1, we are gonna have another session, and then at 2, we're gonna have another one, but I'm gonna go ahead and promote that after within the 1 o'clock. So for our next session at 1, we're just gonna take a 1-hour break, and we're gonna be back live again with Isabel Garcia Cintas, Mayra Ortiz Pauda, Leticia Aragon, and Alvaro Ramirez. Later, we're gonna have Naib Reynoso and Hector Lafosse. All right, so let me share with everybody something from a message from, oh, where's my, there we go. Sorry, so many screens in here. I want to share some messages, highlight one of our partners who is actually gonna make some of this, is making these sessions possible. There we go. Energy Upgrade California is a statewide initiative committed to uniting Californians to strive towards reaching our state's energy goals. That's why we're inviting you to keep it golden, to better manage your energy, the way you use it, and for the future of California. And every state should be doing this. Now, some of their messages, remember, when you are saving energy, there's different ways to do it. Some of those ways include in upgrading your thermostat. If you wanna, you can just replace those power outlets or buy power strips for every room. Replace your light bulbs for more energy efficient ones. You can also replace some appliances if you can, for some appliances that are more energy efficient as well. We want to promote this message out there, especially now with all the greenhouse emissions that are increasing. We want them to decrease, not to increase. Therefore, if you can support this mission, this goal of energy saving, we would really appreciate it. All right, let me see. I want to tell everybody that if you're not following our Facebook page, please follow it, because more sessions are coming up, more events are coming up, and we are going to have other presentations, not live, but they are going to be shared pre-recorded because of the time issues. Not everybody can make it at the specific time. Therefore, we have to record some of them beforehand. We're going to be sharing this, including sessions with other award-winning authors and some of national leaders as well. Now, if you would like to make a donation, you can always go to our Facebook page. The donations make these type of sessions possible. All right, so with that, I want to conclude this session. Thank you, everybody, once again, and we are going to stay in touch. If you want to come back to the sessions, all of you, you are invited to come back, either as a speaker or as an attendee. Right? Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in an hour.
Bye.